Sportsline Podcast on the CHCH multimedia platform. I'm Bubba O'Neill. Sports with a Southern Ontario twist is our thing, and today it's a biggie for many of you in Leafs Nation, as 58-year-old Craig Berube was formally introduced as the 32nd head coach in the lengthy history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. For his perspective on the hiring as one of the foremost hockey minds we do have in the Golden Horseshoe, he's a three-time winner of the prestigious Allan Cup and the owner of the Dundas Real McCoys. No stranger to the Sportsline Podcast, Don Robertson. I just figured I needed a hockey mind, especially an old-school hockey guy, to speak about today's big news. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here, Bubba. We'll see how wide the mind is today.
Hey, I'll tell you, so we'll talk about this. But before we go forward, I don't want to bury the lead, but I do want to go back a little bit. Sheldon Keefe, fired after 5 seasons. I mean, win percentage, 212, 97, and 40. That's a 665 points percentage, one of the best ever in the National Hockey League. 3,100 consecutive point seasons. Now, you could say the 16-21 postseason record may have something to do with his firing, but do you believe it was time for change in Maple Leaf land behind the bench?
Two things. He has a tremendous hockey team to coach. Mm-hmm. Like they're very good. They're very skilled, and they get paid, as he said, on results. And in Toronto, you don't get paid on regular season results. You get paid on playoff results, and they just haven't been there. And he has a style that probably works. It works well in the regular season, but I don't know as it works for every team. And I think it was time for a change.
He's still a bright mind in the league. He's going to get a job somewhere, is he not?
Oh, he might have one now. I mean, there's 4 or 5 teams looking, and with that winning percentage. And it's not like you're recycling a lot. I mean, he's only had one coaching position in the National Hockey League. He'll get another one. And he may inherit a team, and if he's smart, which I think he is, and the opportunity presents itself, he will try and find a team that is far tougher than the Toronto Maple Leafs, that maybe they outwork, and maybe he can augment that toughness and playoff hockey style with his style, and maybe they can be successful in the playoffs.
There's a phrase, and you spent many years behind the bench with the Dundas Real McCoys, and again, coaching men and guys that have been in the National Hockey League. And there's a phrase out there, I hear it more in hockey than anywhere else, so you can tell me to this phrase, and if this really means something, that the coach lost the room. Does that mean anything?
Sure. It's hard when you're there for a long time, although Ron Bernacki and I have been there for a long time. But what we do, rather than change coaches, I mean, I've been at this since the 80s, mm-hmm. and I fired one coach. Because I think when you fire a coach, it means as a general manager, you've made a mistake. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to not make it look like I've made any mistakes. But at our level, and National Hockey League level, you have a lot of turnover. So if you have a fair amount of turnover in a dressing room, you're probably not going to lose the room that quickly. But if you're dealing with the core that he's been dealing with, and remember, they all grew together. He came in the National Hockey League, Marner, Willie, Matthews, they all kind of grew up together. And you can only say the same thing so many different ways, and that's what they mean by losing the room. And how does he change his style? He doesn't look like the guy that's going to walk in and field goal the garbage can and start dropping F-bombs to get him going. He just doesn't seem to be that kind of coach. Mm-hmm. Those kind of coaches have a shorter shelf life because once they get through the profanity, they get a little thin. And I remember a great quote by Jacques Demers, the great Montreal Canadian coach. And his French accent, he says, "The better Patrick Roy play, the better I coach." And that is true. And in fairness to Sheldon Keefe, they have not had a real pure number one goaltender going into the playoffs in a long time.
Yeah, and there's been injuries at that position as well too. So you're certainly correct on that. And we talk about the Samsonov, the inconsistency. A guy that got put on waivers in your Christmas time and somehow mysteriously or amazingly made a great comeback. And yeah, we have heard terms like that about and Craig Berube, I believe, is one of those guys. I mean, his 2019 Stanley Cup victory with the St. Louis Blues may have something to do with Craig Billington playing the best hockey he's ever played as a goaltender in the National Hockey League.
Well, We've won. I won 4 Allan Cups.
Oh, sir.
And one in Brantford in '87.
Okay, that's right.
And a pro championship. And 4 of the 5, our goaltenders have been picked the MVP of the series. Donnie Edwards in '87. So, and he just back-to-back MVPs, both goaltenders. So it's such a key ingredient to find a goaltender that can add stability and just not let in a bad goal. They don't have to stand on their head every night. Just don't give up a soft one when you can't. And that's important, and the Leafs haven't had that. And very few teams that win a Stanley Cup have goaltending like that. You just need that consistency. And I don't know if Toronto have it right now. I mean, Joseph Woll has the potential. Everybody talks about how much he gets hurt. Some of that is a fluke. I mean, he could go all next year and play. Like, nobody plays 75 games anymore.
Yep.
You know, Marty Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, they used to play 75,
Furzy,
78 game Furzy, all those guys. But now it's load management, what I think is a crock. They fly on private jets on couches like this and get fed like kings, load management. But anyways, they talk about it. And it's the same as pitchers. You know, you can't throw any more than 100 pitches. And talk to Fergie Jenkins. I mean, come on.
I actually, funny, just to side note, there one year, I think it was when he won his Cy Young, he pitched 26 complete games that year. I think there was 5 complete games in all of Major League Baseball last year.
Well, let him pitch complete games. Unless it's
300 innings. We celebrate 200 innings now.
Yeah, I know. Well, he probably went into extra innings in some of them.
Yeah, good point.
So anyway, the goaltending is such a key, and the Leafs haven't had it, and somebody's got to walk the plank. I mean, Brandon Shanahan isn't walking up to the microphone saying, you know, guys, this starts at the top. I'm going to relieve myself of my duties. That doesn't happen. But they're running out of, GMs. I mean, he's had enough GMs in his tenure. This is got to be Shanahan's last kick at the cat, and they better find success. So we'll see. I think Berube, I think he's exactly what they needed.
And what is it about him that you see is that quality that may be missing in terms of a leader behind the bench for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, one thing he can do is he can walk into the room with great confidence. Let's almost forget about the regular season. They have enough skill. They're going to make the playoffs. It's a matter of how successful they are in the playoffs. And so they'll be fine in the regular season. They're going to make the playoffs. The playoffs are different. There's a switch. He can walk in and say, I've been through that grind. I know what needs to be done. And I know the price that has to be paid. And he will start that in training camp, and he'll make gentle reminders. But I don't think he's going to hit him over the head with it like every night. Guys, you have to play the way I did, the way it was played in my era. Him, Tocchet, some other guys that were all tough guys played in the NHL. They know that the style of game has changed, and there's basically no fighting anymore, but there's hitting, and there's a price to be paid. And I think one of the things Berube will be able to do, and we do it in Dundas, and I'll tell you that story in a couple minutes, but I think Berube will be able to go to John Tavares and say, listen, you're at the tail end of your contract, you're about 35 years old, and this will be before the playoffs. And he'll start working through that during the regular season and say, for us to have success, this is the role I need you to play. I need you to be a third-line center. I need you. You have a tremendous hockey mind. And when I say a tremendous hockey mind, you can tell by watching, we can tell by watching our players. Bernie and I do it all the time. You watch their eyes, you watch their head. You know if they're looking around. They know where guys are going to come from because they're good hockey players, and they know what to do. That's an intelligent hockey mind. Tavares has that. The interesting thing is, and Tavares has this too, when we're looking for that, now we got to know that the guy knows what to do when he gets there. Like if I know you're coming in, it's one thing to have the brains to go to you. It's something, not just be with you, prevent you from getting the shot off, preventing you from being able to execute. John Tavares has great hockey intelligence. So if he can convince John Tavares that the best way for you to carry a Stanley Cup for the Toronto Maple Leafs is you be a third line checker, and you chip in a little bit. So if you're relying on him as your third line checker, now the job is to find somebody that can replace him as a second line center.
Right.
Is that Max Domi? We'll have to find out if he even stays. But he can convince that. And we've done that in Dundas. And we prepared guys. Like, we're not a regular season team. Like, we've won Allan Cups. We've won 12 Robertson Cups. I think we've ended up in first place twice in 25 years.
Wow.
Being in first place doesn't mean anything to me. Being in first place and winning the last game of the regular season, that's what you build to. When we played in the Allan Cup, when we played against Newfoundland, we had a tough, mean hockey team. We were big, we were strong, we were responsible, we were hard to play against, and we knew if we had all the athletes that we'd signed and wanted to contribute healthy enough to compete like that, we would be very difficult to beat. I mean, we were up 6-0 at the end of the second period.
I was going to say, that was a performance, wow.
But the guys that we're playing against are going, these guys, we're not paying that price. We had Ryan Horvath there. I mean, he hits like a truck. But we have guys that'll pay that price, much like Florida did to Boston.
Yep.
Like, that was like men against boys along the wall, which is along the boards, right? So when you have guys that will pay that price, and you're going to get smacked if you try and go through that hole, and you're bigger and stronger, you're going to stop trying to go through that hole. Takes me to my next point. Berube has to convince Mitch Marner to play.
This is where I'm going. This is the skill guys.
The dirty areas. Huh? So I've got Tavares going to the third line, right? Because Berube will say, you know what, John, this is what we need. If you want to carry that Stanley Cup around, I was going to say Maple Leaf Gardens, around Toronto, if you do this and you pay that price, that's what we'll do. Mitch, come sit here. Here's what I need you to do. I need you to do things that you're uncomfortable doing, and we'll pay the price to do it. And you've got to prove to me before the trade deadline, if you will accept the trade, that you're prepared to do that in Toronto, and you will be a hero for the rest of your life in the city you grew up in. I mean, he can spin a real good story to Mitch Marner. And if anybody can get Mitch Marner to pay that price and play in the dirty areas, then they can win and they can have success in the playoffs. If he can't, or he feels he can't, I think he'll dismiss Mitch Marner down to the fourth line, get him out of the way, and let's put a guy in there that will pay the price. He's not a big, strong guy, but nor was Gilmore.
Yep.
I mean, they called him Killer.
Yep.
Like, he got hammered in the playoffs. He can get up with a smile on his face and skate away and then try and run you over.
I think about him and Pekka. Guys just...
Right, they're not big men, but they pay the price. They do the job. So if he can get those guys doing that, Willie's Willie. Willie's not going to hit anybody. Willie's not going to run over anybody. But and there's times when I go, Willie. Then next shift, he's probably going to score you 2 goals. Yeah. So he has a skill set nobody else has. Mm-hmm. But if he can get Tavares to pay that price, if they can replace him on the second line, and they won't be good enough unless they can get Tavares as their third line center, and they can get Marner to play in dirty areas and take advantage of his skill set, they can be successful. Berube's challenge will be getting Marner to do that, or believing he can get Marner to do that. That's what I think.
I would believe that too, and I think that's going to be a hard, convincing job. But I think as the new guy, yeah, you're right. You get your leadership crew and say, this is what I do need from you. I think it's also incumbent, and you comment on this, that Brad Treliving continue. I remember when he got hired last year as the new general manager and said, we need guys with more, and I know you'd love these words, more snot and piss, right? Like, that's what he said. I need guys with more jam, all this kind of stuff on that team when he looked at the Maple Leafs. But I think that also has to come from the back line as well.
Yeah, their defense was tougher when he was done with it.
That's true.
They've got 3 or 4 guys.
Edmondson was really good.
Now, remember who put the Toronto Maple Leafs in this mess? Right?
Yep.
He's in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And Dubas put them in this position where he let the inmates run the asylum. Here's a 6-year contract, no trade, we'll never get rid of you. Okay, so what threat does the coach have? You know, the guy's looking at him saying, I'm making $10 million a year, you're making $2 million, and you're telling me what to do? And they can't trade me, but they'll fire you. Like, that's an awful position. So when I said Keith grew up with them, and he was kind of in the same boat. They were all their first NHL experience, and they grew together. They just didn't grow in the right way. And when you talk about losing the room, there's nothing else he can say. Like, he was backed into a corner, didn't have the goaltending, had a tough enough defense, but not a great defense. But if you look at how Ottawa dispensed of the Boston Bruins, they'd beat the Leafs 3 straight. The Leafs would have said, we're not even playing the fourth game. We just got hammered.
Yep.
We're going to get hurt. We don't like the way you guys play. And that's how Berube is going to want to play. So he's going to want some guys there that will pay a price on the fourth line and eat up 7 minutes and go out there and make somebody pay the price every time they're out there. And on home ice advantage, if they're good enough, you can get them out against your first and second line and pound the snot out of them, to use Treliving's word, or beat the shit out of them. That would be a better
pretty
idea.
much what I think he's thinking.
That's what he wanted to say.
Okay, now speaking of pounding the blank out of someone, I love the word anyway. Here's the thing, and as a player, especially these young generation of players, they can actually go to YouTube, they can go elsewhere and find visions of their head coach playing the game. And you are a fan of that type of hockey. He played 17 years, bottom six forward kind of guy, playing with 5 teams, including the Leafs, most of it with Washington and Philadelphia. And he was a guy that liked to drop the gloves. In fact, he went toe-to-toe with Brendan Shanahan, his president right now, a couple of times. Do you believe that his style of play would be something that you can translate to your team? And on the flip side of that, would the players respect him more because he was a guy that lasted almost 2 decades?
Well, I think anybody that played in the league for 17 years and made a living the way Craig Berube did, you have to respect that. You understand that the game's changed, but when the game was tough and you had to drop the gloves to make a living on a regular basis, I think he's 5th most major penalties for fighting in the history of the National Hockey League. I think Domi's like number 1, way ahead. But he paid the price. Now, he can't get them to fight. But when I talked to you earlier and I said he has to get Bubba Marner to pay a price. He doesn't have to get killed. He doesn't have to get beat up. But he's going to have to get cross-checked in the shoulders, cross-checked in the ribs, slashed across the forearms when he's going to the net, into the dirty areas to make a play. Because he's so skilled. Like, if he does that at his size and his skill level, he'll be a rock star in Toronto. But if Berube, like I said, if Berube doesn't think he can instill that in him and get him to do it, he'll be putting him on the fourth line if they can't trade him. He'll make him pay the price. And the way a coach can now get even, if Marner's in the last year of his contract, when you put that guy in the fourth line in the playoffs because he won't do what you want him to do, good luck with your next contract and getting $10 million. Because last year you were on the fourth line. And that's how coaches can send messages. Sit them out, put them on the fourth line in the contract year. That's the leverage Berube has. Now, when you talk about him and Shanahan, and we just chatted briefly before we come on about, he did not go toe-to-toe with Brendan Shanahan. There was a film of a clip of a fight with the Berube and Shanahan. Shanahan ragdolled him. Like, he beat the snot out of him. Twice. But the second time he did it, I even saw a quote from Brendan Shanahan. He said, I think I came 3rd in that fight. So there would have been an interesting press conference, but the world's changed. Like, there's no Brian Burke can't live in this world anymore. There's no more truculence and fighting and like
at least that kind of truculence.
No, but you can be mean and you can be hurtful. And Paul Maurice, in his post-game comments with Boston, said it was mean, it was dirty, it was skilled. When you hear coaches talk about mean and dirty, those are the things I'm talking about. Those are the cross-checks here, the crack guys' ribs. You know, we had 2 guys in the Allan Cup. The doctors were freezing them before the game to pay that price. I walked in after the second game. We have a veteran team. There were more ice packs. There was as much ice on bodies in our dressing room and there was on the arena. Because these guys wanted to pay the price. And that's the key to getting the right guy. A little easier in senior. I don't like you move you out and move another guy in.
Right.
We're not trapped with no trade contacts, and nobody's making $10 million a year playing for us.
You know, and it's funny, it reminds me of the story. It's so well, discussed, but it really is, I think there's got to be a lot of truth to it. In the fact, and it came out of the mouth of Wayne Gretzky. and talking to the New York Islanders, and that's the year they had won their fourth, and the Oilers lost their first. And he went over as a sign of respect to go to the locker room to go see the Islanders, and he said that he was shocked. He was blown away. He said there was no celebration. There were some guys shaking hands and whatever. He said, but there was guys sitting there hurting, injured, like just glad it was over. And he thought to himself, and he looked at his locker room and his guys and said, we didn't pay the price. Those guys won, but they're all beat up and they're destroyed. We need to pay the price. And then turned around and that next year faced the Islanders and then finally got it done.
And started to understand the price that had to be paid, and had some pride to do it. Now that'll be the other thing that I don't know if Berube can instill. I don't know if anybody can instill, but you have to have pride and you have to have respect for the game and you have to want to win. Now remember, these guys don't get paid for the playoffs. Like they get paid till the end of the regular season. There's a small bonus, but not compared to the regular season salaries, and sometimes it looks like it. But when you win a Stanley Cup and you put a Stanley Cup on your resume, you earn a lot more money on your next contract. If you're 33 years old and you've played on a Stanley Cup team in the last 2 years, you're going to get another 2-year contract because you've won a Stanley Cup, because they think you can bring something to their room. So you can get paid. It's just a matter of how you get your money. But they can't pay the guys for some of the things that they're going through in the playoffs. Like it's a tough championship to win. You have to win 16 games.
It's hard. 4 rounds. You know, just one more thing on the Leafs here, Don. I respect your opinion so much here, and I think it was Game 4 with the Maple Leafs at home, 3 or 4, and they were basically booed off the ice, and fans were thinking, they're not even trying. They don't give a shit. They got their money, as you said. They got their regular season money. It means nothing to them. Is there such a thing in professional sports for hockey players in this sense, that they don't care, or that their effort was below 100%?
Sure. Some of them are almost flat out ambivalent about it. You know, like it's, well, if we don't make it in the first round, they really are looking forward to golfing, because they know,
come on,
like I just said, you got to win 16 games, right? And you're playing every other day unless you can beat somebody in 5 to get 2 or 3 days off just to heal up a little bit. There's a price to be paid. Those guys don't last long in the league, but I talked about Willie. Willie's not likely going to get hurt out there unless he bumps into the goal, right? Because he stays out of the way, he won't play in traffic, but he'll get you 2 highlight reels the next shift. So there are guys that you live with that can do that. Now, I thought Willie worked pretty hard in the playoffs. The Leafs had 1 game where they looked like they wanted it and they owned it. And you just kind of wonder, why can't they play like that every game? Because just when you're wondering if they have it in them, they show you that they do, and then they turn into Casper the Ghost, and you can't find them. Like, that's no way to play the game. Berube will change that. He'll make those guys pay that price. He will challenge them. I'm sure you saw the comparison shortly after Keith was fired, and Keith's walking in there before Game 7 and said, you know, enjoy it, go out here, work hard. Yep. And then they have Berube's F-bomb laced tyrant saying, and tonight we're going to go out and win the cup. Like every third word was an F-bomb. But he fired them up. I'm sure he picks a spot. You can't do that every night. But when you pick your spots and you can put the fear into your guys and get them to believe in it because you've actually paid that price. Like, can you imagine him walking into that room saying, you know how we used to play? I kicked the snot out of the president of this hockey team, and he came back for more. That's what we need to do. I mean, it's a great example, and you can go upstairs and talk to the boss or look at it on YouTube. He paid that price and came back for more. He's a great champion. And Shanahan, by all accounts, was a better hockey player than he is a president.
Probably. I think that's fair to say. Oilers, Canucks. I don't know about you. We're staying up late at nights. What a series. 7 games. It had to be 7 games. But I think the best team won.
I think so. I think you're right. I think they paid a bigger price, a little nap for the first two periods, and watched the third period and thought they were home and away, right? They're up 3-0. What was it, like 5 minutes left? Then
bang, bang.
The Canucks snap one, then they get another one, and you're going, oh, boy. You know that some of the Oilers are sitting on the bench and they've maybe soiled themselves going, if we blow this, we're in big trouble. But they didn't. They blocked shots. They paid Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is now paying the ultimate price to win. And he wasn't. He was a fancy dance guy earlier on in his career in Edmonton. Now he gets it. Like he's almost done, right? He's getting older now. I better pay the price so we have a chance to win this thing. And I think they've got them all buying in. They're another team that doesn't have a number one goaltender that can take them through. Now, Detroit won 2 or 3 cups without a stud goalie. So it can be done, but I'm telling you, life is a lot easier if you got the all-star guy. But I think the right team won, and I'm happy for the Oilers. One of my best friends, Pat LaForge, was president there for 12 years. And they deserve it, and they've been in a slump. And they're a Canadian team. I'm glad there's at least a Canadian team in the Final Four.
32 block shots as you talk about paying the price, and that was unbelievable. And you watch guys like Darnell Nurse, who really stepped up his game and really kind of ignored his offensive flair. I mean, Evan Bouchard's taking care of that on defense.
Wow.
But, he's been just unbelievable.
See, Nurse has turned it around.
Yep.
Nurse is playing playoff hockey. I'm sure they've talked to him, say, if you do this, we can win. He has a bit of an offensive flair. He's a big, strong kid. Can be a little bit mean, and he's making Hamilton proud, but he's paying that price, and that's what I'm talking about. Berube going to Tavares. These are the conversations good coaches have and good organizations have and saying, Bubba, we need you to do this, and if you can do this, we can win. I know you're not going to like the assignment, but if you do that, we have Justin Da Silva that plays for us. He's 6'5", played pro, and we really wanted him to focus on defense, and he did, and he played the best hockey of his life, and he was rewarded as an all-star at the Allan Cup. And, he would just as soon grab it and go. But, we have skilled forwards. We tried to keep our D back. Even Chris Campoli for the Real McCoys, who played over 400 in National Hockey League, recognized the skill set of our forwards, get it in their hands, good things will happen. And they're doing that with Nurse. You're getting your people to do what they're really good at, maybe not exactly what they'd like to do, but they'd really like to win. And if you can instill in it and they can believe they can win if they do that, and then you get some success and they go, maybe these guys are right. Maybe these guys care as much as I do about winning. Right? Because you're not asking them to be mean to them. You're asking them because you want to do the right thing. And Nurse is a great example, and the Oilers have got some other people that are great examples. So,
well, it reminds me of a kind of a just crossover sport kind of thing. Bill Belichick, do your job.
Yes.
Do your job.
You only got one.
Yeah. Do your job.
Like the goalie, stop the puck.
Yeah, I think he won enough Super Bowls to have that be validated. Hey, final thing here, and again, thank you so much for this talk on the National Hockey League and what's going on. It's been, I think, a real fun playoff year, but it was a real fun year for you, getting to organize the Allan Cup and then winning the thing in the end. The smiles on the players' faces, and we had Rod Black and Rick Vibe on the call here on CHCH and Cable 14, and just watching the guys skate around with their kids and their wives on the ice, and boy, it really meant something to them, and it was a great ending of the year for you guys.
Thanks, Bubba. We have the greatest army of volunteers that also won the Allan Cup, and for the players to share it with their families. This is, I think all but 4 of our guys in the lineup will play pro hockey, and they never know when this is going to be their last season. Give me one more shot. We convinced them to try and repeat, which we did. And winning back-to-back is not easy, although it looked easy in the final game. It's not. And to have their families on the ice, their parents on the ice, the kids, the pictures of the kids in the cup, and all. I mean, it's the oldest amateur hockey championship in the world. To see that happen was fabulous. We had a nice crowd in the final game. CH and Cable 14 did a beautiful job. Ron Bernacki was coach of the year this year, and again, we don't judge on regular season. We judge judge on getting rings, right? And it was funny. Barron does our rings for us, and the Monday after the championship game, I open up an email, and the guy I bought the rings for sends me a design with back to back on them. I mean, they've done this before, but it's kind of great. And but it is a wonderful feeling, and a lot of people deserve a lot of thank you. The Newfoundland come in again and put on a great show. Alberta come in, and it was really well deserved. We were really happy with Vive and Black. The viewership exceeded everybody's expectations.
Yes.
Well exceeded anything we thought we could get, and it's part of the rebirth. And it's also wonderful for the town of Dundas and the community of Hamilton. And overall, I mean, you got to be pretty happy with it. Although I went home, I've had a couple guys say, "Are you?" Like one guy last week at the golf course says, "Are you done celebrating?" I went, "Celebrating." I says, "I was in bed at 9:30 Saturday night. It was been a long 2 weeks getting ready for it."
Yeah.
You know, I went home and I sat there and I had a cup of tea. Might have been some wine in the tea, and I am so done. And we're sitting there. As soon as my wife looks at me and says, "You know, I feel bad for Newfoundland." I'm going like, "You feel bad?" Of course you feel bad for Newfoundland. Well, they had to play the Friday night, and I said, but nobody felt bad for us last year. Last year, like in 2023, we played Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday afternoon. But everybody feels bad for Newfoundland because they played Friday night against us, and they didn't play Thursday. Don't feel bad for them. And the other thing, the guy says, like, how long do you stay excited? And I said, well, I've been at it a long time. And quite frankly, our room was more like the Islanders' room. I mean, there was some hysteria. But the reality is, when you win like we did, and we set out to win it every year, you really, when you're not a dark horse and it's not a surprise, I mean, we prepare our team every year to win the national championship. So when you do, all you've done is accomplish your goal. Anything short of that, I get pissed at and say, we're going to work harder to rebuild. But all we did is achieve our goal. I mean,
well, don't just say all you did.
Well,
you won a national championship there.
But that's what we set out to do.
Right, okay, fair, I understand.
But you don't get...
The best part about it, though, for you now, and your wife in some ways as well, too, is that next year, you guys, and Dundas Real McCoys, because I figure you're going to be good enough as well, too, you'll get to travel next year. Someone else will be able to take care of the tournament.
Traveling is hard. Hard. It's like herding cats. You know, you get out there, you got to. It's not easy, and it's not easy for everybody to take. These are all young guys, right? For the most part, like they're all under 40 years old. The odd exception with elite athletes, but they've got young families. And to tell your wife and your kids that I'm going to Alberta or I'm going to Newfoundland with the boys for a week to play hockey. So I have to go over and sell some people that this is a really good idea when you're not paying them.
Yep.
So they maybe only get 2 or 3 weeks vacation a year. So, honey, we're not going to the cottage where we're going to rent a cottage or go to your mom's cottage. I'm going to go to Alberta this April and enjoy myself playing hockey. It's hard to travel.
Once you get the pass, though, I'm sure it's all gravy.
Yeah, it works out good.
Gravy having you here to talk about the hiring of Craig Berube, the National Hockey League, and of course, what a great year it has been for the Dundas Real McCoys. Don Robertson again. Congratulations on your new appointment there with the police board. Or
yeah,
now you're a big wig. Not only are you a big wig in the real estate, in the hockey business. Now I gotta watch the way I drive. Or like this.
You do. I gotta watch what I'm doing. It's funny, during the interview process, they said,
just let people know what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on the Hamilton Police Services Board, and very happy to be asked to make a contribution to the community, and they have oversight. I mean, we don't tell them, I'm not telling anybody where to set up speed traps or ride programs, but the overall budgeting and the enforcement policy and trying to make sure that they have the tools they need to protect our community. It's all part and parcel of that. But during the interview process, the one fella, because it was a Zoom call, said, when was the last interaction you had, and can you describe how it went for you with the Hamilton Police Services? I'm going, well, I was probably trying to talk myself out of a speeding ticket. It's not like I've ever been arrested before, but anyway, it'll be an interesting journey, and we'll put some quality time into it, and hopefully we can keep things the same or make them better. That's always the plan, right? If there's a contribution I can make to put us in that direction, they won't have to worry about what I'm thinking.
You'll say it.
I'll say it.
Hamilton, Dundas, pretty proud. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Thanks for having me, Bubba. I loved it.
That's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports with people who know what they're talking about and are certainly passionate about it. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast want to hear from you. Hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you do have something to say, as Don would say it. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.